everyone. This is Nikki from Illuminated Movement Astrology, here to talk today about a topic that is really near and dear to my heart and I think is absolutely timely for what is going on. And that topic is, have you ever been afraid of an upcoming transit? Right? Have you ever been scared of what astrology might bring to you that you don't want to have happen in your life? Chances are, if you've looked at astrology for any amount of time, this has come up for you. And so I want to talk about this today because I think it's so important, particularly in the light of Pluto and Aquarius, that big shift. And from reading all of your comments, and the people that have reached out to me and shared their stories and everything else, that I think it's really important to talk about. Because if we're going to use astrology as a tool, which it is, then in a sense, we need to know what comes with it because astrology it's complex and it's very difficult. And so there's a lot to talk about this, but I'm hoping that by the end of this video, I can give some new insights, give some relief to those of you that may be feeling scared about any astrological transit. So let's get started. All right, so let's dive in. Afraid of an upcoming astrology transit? Well, you've heard me say this before, and I'm going to say it probably 1,000 more times, but astrology is complex. It's so complex. And there are many different kinds of astrology. Okay, many different schools, many different traditions, many different thoughts. And all of those different schools and thoughts, etc., they all focus their work in a different way. Okay, so the lens will be different. Sometimes the languaging is slightly different. And there's many, 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 like more than I listed on this screen. And my point in bringing this up is number one, there's a lot of people who are newer to astrology, and welcome all the people that are new to astrology in any way. And you may or may not be aware that there are so many different kinds of astrology, right? I get this question all the time. Like people don't necessarily realize, they just think it's like one thing and that's it. But really, it's like a language. And just like we have a multitude of languages that go around the world, astrology is the same. And so the reason I bring that up is to remind you that it's okay to work with what resonates for you and also who resonates for you, because you may have 12 different traditional astrologers that you listen to, but they're not all exactly the same, right? One might resonate more than another. So make sure that you're working with someone or listening to someone that resonates. I think that's super, super important. And, remember that every astrologer is working on their level of consciousness at any given time. So that's not a judgment of anyone, but it is something to bring up because if you're working in a place where you believe that planets do things to you and cause you problems, then that's the lens through which you'll talk about astrology. That's not my personal opinion. That's not my personal belief. And I don't talk about astrology in that way. I believe that astrology reflects the energy of where we are at any given moment and that we have an opportunity to co-create with the universe. So those are very different things. And not one is not better than the other. They're just different. And so look for someone who resonates for you. All right. So I got this question a lot, right? I've been getting it a lot. And I love when you guys comment and share. I do my best to respond to them because I really do appreciate the community and people sharing their stories. If I don't get to you, just know that I'm holding you in my heart. And I do actually read and care about the comments. But one of the big ones that came up from my last video, which was about Pluto and Aquarius, which I'll link below as well, is basically, what does Pluto and Aquarius mean for me? Right. And the underlying subtext to that question is, I'm afraid of what might happen. Right. Because particularly when it comes to Pluto, there's a lot of scary things being said. And so I think we need to address it. Right. So back to astrology is complex. And yes, I know I repeated myself. I'm going to do it again and again. But I'm driving home this point because I feel so strongly about it. And one of the things that can be particularly difficult about astrology is wanting to know everything, right? Somehow we as humans want to know what's going to come up in advance. It makes us feel safer. It makes us feel more secure, right? If I know tomorrow it's going to rain and I bring an umbrella, whew, I feel better about that, right? That's kind of an easy example. But what if it rains tomorrow and I don't bring an umbrella, right? But I happen to have the best day of my life jumping through puddles and getting all splashy, and I end up meeting someone who's doing the same thing and we strike up a conversation and now I have a new friend, right? So just because we know it's going to rain, it doesn't mean a certain outcome is exactly going to happen. And when we anticipate things, sometimes we stop living in the spontaneity of life. We stop participating in the surprises that life can bring us that are actually beautiful and joyful because we're so, hyper focused on what could possibly hurt us that we forget to leave room for God and the universe and the cosmos and the field and all those things to work magic in our lives. Right. And another piece here, and I know I've been guilty of it myself, is, I want to know what's coming up. And so I look too far ahead. And then sometimes it's like, oh man, like for example, Pluto again. I happen to have been going through a really long-term Pluto transit, just where it is on my chart. And there was a point in my life where I thought, I don't even want to look at astrology anymore. I don't want to know that Pluto is still not done in my chart and really won't be for a very long time. And then I put it in a different perspective and thought, you know what? It doesn't matter. Whatever comes up in my life, I can engage with it and I can make the most of it. And I've had Pluto work in its magic in my chart pretty much my whole life, and I'm still here. So if that helps anyone, there you go. One of the other pieces is reducing things down to keywords, and it's really helpful in a way because astrology is so vast. But it's challenging in the way that it can be reductive, right? And so when we reduce things down, when we're focused too much on the future, we start getting anxious. And there's things that happen to us biologically. When I learned about it through Bruce Lipton's work, particularly with the biology of belief, and this was a number of years ago, his work completely changed my life. When I started understanding like what was going on biologically in different states of being. And if anyone's interested in his work, he's pretty phenomenal. Again, he totally changed my life in great ways that I never would have anticipated prior to that. I'll say it one last time for the people in the back. Astrology is complex, right? So at any given time, all of the cosmic bodies, the planets, the asteroids, these star configurations, all of these things, they're working together. Okay, they're not working in isolation. Even though with astrology, we tend to compartmentalize, and I certainly do it too. So I'm not, again, like pretending that I don't do it, but we tend to compartmentalize astrology down to these little things. And when we don't have a wider context, it can give us a bit of a distorted viewpoint, right? And part of that is because it would take days. Like I could do a YouTube video that lasted for days and still not cover all of the things that are happening astrologically, particularly right now because of where we are at such a rare convergence of endings and beginnings. Right. So no video can cover everything. Okay. So just know that if you're really going to follow astrology and get into it, just know that there's more. Even if you don't want to get deep into it, just know that there's always more. Okay. And then my favorite bit here, when things get popularized, they tend to get distorted. Right. And I wrote there, hello, Mercury retrograde. I laugh because the obsession with Mercury retrograde for about the last, I don't know, what has it been now, like 10-ish years, just blows my mind. Um, it's just it makes me laugh now when I see, oh, Mercury retrograde's back, like, oh no, hide your kids, hide your wives. No, you don't need to do that. Okay. It's really Mercury retrograde has gotten way out of hand. I'll just say that. right, or things about particular signs that have come from the popularization of sun sign astrology. No, not all Scorpios are jealous all of the time and only Scorpio, right? That's not an emotion that is relegated to just Scorpio. Jealousy is also not just associated with Scorpio's planets, which are Pluto and Mars, but Venus as well, right? So again, there's so much more at any given time. Everything in reality, the reality that which we live in, of any sign or planet or transit or chart or anything that's going on is it's rich and it's complex and it's vibrant and it's yummy and it's all of these things all at once. Okay, so let's not have like the social media and the memes let us forget how just juicy everything is in life. All right, so talking about, let's go here. Let's go here. So, Pluto and Aquarius, right? Let's talk about some key words. Let's talk about some of these reduced words. So, transiting Pluto is going to be in Aquarius for about 19 and a half, 20-ish years, right? And it just went in and it's a big deal to some. So, what that also means is that Pluto is going to be answering to, will be disposited by the Aquarian rulers, which are Uranus and Saturn. And so we kind of have to put all those things together. And I touched on this a little bit in my last video, but there's certainly a lot more to talk about. So, common key words for our friend Pluto: death, hell, crisis, betrayal, loss, disempowerment. Yuck, right? Uranus: sudden, shocking, chaos, rebellion, fracture, trauma. Okay, right? Like, woo, not fun. Saturn: fear, obligation, deprivation, lack, obstacles, cold. So all of these key words, right? When they get focused on, they produce effects that have a certain level of, we'll say vibration to them. Right. So when we put them all together, because kind of what we do with astrology, not kind of, but what we do with astrology is we put things all together to get a bigger picture. So if we were to make a menu, right, if you were to be in a restaurant and the menu was these common Pluto, Uranus, and Saturn keywords, would you want to order off this menu? Right? Like, I can't decide between let's see, the crisis and the chaos. What would you recommend? Right? And like, oh, by the way, can I have a side of deprivation, please? Like, no one's gonna eat there. No one's gonna order that, right? Or most people won't. And so when we say these words, it produces certain chemicals in our body, right? It produces certain reactions. And so when I say these words, how did they feel in your body? What did you notice? Right? I'm gonna say some again. I'm gonna put them together. Sudden betrayal, black, right? Death, shock, fear. I notice for myself, I personally feel my heart constrict, right? I feel it close off. I feel like a push and a bracing at the same time in my own body. I can feel that. And I can feel that also because I've practiced becoming aware of how thoughts and emotions and words and vibrations and environments and all those kinds of things affect me physically. So, there's an absurd amount of these kinds of words also, particularly, let's say, in the Western media. I'll speak again from, I'm in the United States, and in the United States right now, I mean, at any given time, the media is constantly saying some nonsense like, shocking, housewife just bought a dress. Is that really shocking? Do I really, need to get myself ramped up in that way? No. And we wonder why our nervous systems are so dysregulated, right? We're being bombarded by this stuff all the time. And so my long point here is to say, observe what happens for you, right? None of these keywords are wrong or untrue about any of these planets, but they're certainly not the complete picture, not by a long shot. And so let's take a look at some other common keywords about these same planets. So common keywords about Pluto: rebirth, healing, transformation, trust, regeneration, empowerment. About Uranus: freedom, liberation, authenticity, genius, connection, higher mind. For Saturn: wisdom, self-agency, self-authority, experience, perseverance, self-confidence. And let's make a menu of these words, right? How is this menu compared to the last one? If I put together some items here, we have a transformation of genius and wisdom, a regeneration of confidence and connection. How do those words and those associations to those words feel in your body? Do you feel any different than the last set of words, right? Do you feel expanded or do you feel contracted? Chances are you probably feel a lot better, right? You'll notice my voice was totally different. Like everything about it is different. And again, none of these words are untrue either, right? They're part of the same polarity. And in the laws of the universe, we live with polarity. And of course, these are maybe more of the extreme sides, right? The comparison, the different ends. There's a lot of nuance in between that we have to take into account. And not only that, but as I said in the beginning, there's always a lot going on in general, and how we perceive these things, whatever our level of consciousness is, we're going to feel differently about it. If we are at a place in our own consciousness where we understand that a death process, whether that's metaphorical or literal, is a part of life, and that it's necessary, and that there is regeneration after that. If we understand that, we're going to engage a lot differently, right? If we feel the self-confidence because we have faced adversity and crisis and things, sudden reversals of fortune, which again are all Pluto, Saturn, Uranus words. But if we have enough of that confidence that we have dealt with enough things, that we are going to be okay, even if unwanted things come up, we feel really differently about them. And it's really important to keep in mind when you're engaging with anything in life, but also with astrology. It's really, really important. How the heck would I know? Well, I'm not going to share my personal chart at this point, but on my chart, I've got an Aquarian chart signature. I have a really prominent Uranus. I have a whole undercurrent of Scorpio and therefore Pluto energy. And Saturn is contacting the benefics in my chart, right? So I share that to say, I get it, right? I get what it feels like to have astrologers, whether it's books, whether it's lectures, whether it's in readings, you know, look at a chart that has those kinds of things like are contained in my chart, and to be told some really detrimental things about them, really negative things, really limiting, really constricting. Um, I've had very well-meaning astrologers tell me they feel sorry for me because I've got this stuff in my chart. And, it's like on a client side, it's like, thanks. What am I supposed to say about that? And, not that they're not wrong, that there's been hard things that have happened in my life, but I don't have the market on that, not by a long shot. Everyone has adversity, everyone has challenges, everyone has the energy that they have. And to sit down and say, you know, negative things or detrimental things. I sometimes wonder when I read stuff, even in books or the internet or whatever. I wonder if these people actually see clients. And I wonder if they actually like look a client in the face and tell them that they're basically screwed and their chart is terrible and therefore they are terrible. Like it really, I honestly wonder. And I don't know the answer to that question, but from the perspective that I work, I'm really passionate about expanding consciousness around things that are so-called difficult or different or bad or scary or whatever they are, because I live with it every day. And that has changed and shaped the way that I share astrology and the types of astrology that I do. Even evolutionary astrology, as much as I love it, I had to take a little step back from for a while because it got a little heavy. And I was so grateful to find humanistic astrology. And one of my teachers there, who's just incredible at the London School of Astrology, Frank Clifford, who also, I share the same concept of there are no bad charts. There is nothing that's terrible in your chart. It's just a matter of, do you have an expanded consciousness to look at it? So that's how I personally look at things. And why I do that is to be able to expand responsibility. And yes, I know I hyphenated those words. You don't need to tell me that in the comments. Thank you. Um, and really, what I mean is the ability to respond. And like I said at the beginning, when we know we have, let's say, a toolbox full of tools, and we approach a project, we may feel better about that project because we've got what we need, or at least we've got stuff, some options. If we don't have that, it can feel a little different. And so transits are a wonderful opportunity to engage with different seasons of life, different energies in life, different things in life, because the whole purpose is to live life, right? And astrology is just one of so many tools that can help you gain greater clarity, self-understanding, knowledge, compassion for yourself and others, right? It's great for that if you choose to use it in that way, which not everyone does. And I've talked about this a lot in this video already, but your level of consciousness, that makes a big difference. And again, this is not a judgment on anyone. There have been years of my life where I was a top competitor in the Victim Olympics. Like I didn't even realize the amount of victim consciousness that I actually had. And that had to do with conditioning and generational stuff and a lot of things that I've spent years and years and years unwinding. Right. And that is nothing against anyone. It just happens to be part of the experience that I've had. And it's part of my journey in this life, my heroine's journey to do those kinds of things, to engage with those kinds of dragons, if you will. But having a victim mentality is very, very different than embracing that you're the co-creator of your life, right? Or that God works through you, right? When we lessen separation between things happening to us and things happening through us, for us, as us, there's a really different shift there. And this belongs in its own video in and of itself, but the age that we've had of the precession of equinoxes, where we've been in the age of Pisces, part of that has been the exploration of separation. So a lot of that right now, we're in the transition period of changing and healing and rediscovering how to bring the divine back in to our everyday existence in a way that it hasn't been for a couple millenniums. So when you're engaging with transits, let's do an example. So let's do what we would typically think of, although it's not necessarily exclusive to a Pluto transit, right? So let's do an example of encountering betrayal. All right. So betrayal happens in your life. That's not fun, right? That is a painful experience. It's going to be some kind of crisis, right? Um, Betrayal is breaking a trust with someone else, right? That you made a really deep and vulnerable connection with. That's why it's painful. And not only has our trust been broken with another person, but potentially our trust is broken with ourselves because now our worldview has shifted, right? Our personal worldview has been put to the test. If I thought I could trust you and give you all my deepest, most squishy, soft, vulnerable bits, and you turned on me, what does that say about me and how I view trust, who I can trust? Right? That's something that's kind of big there. So the question to ask is, are you willing to engage with what is being brought to your attention through this experience? Right? If on some level you start to understand that you can move through the victim consciousness and experience the victim consciousness. Don't, you know, don't fall into that spiritual bypassing, like la 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 la. Oh, it's fine. I co-created this and I have no feelings about it. And tra la, I'll just go do some yoga and drink some ayahuasca and everything's fine. And then when you don't process those emotions or you don't process the experience, it comes back later. So you might as well deal with it up front. Moving through the emotions that come up around this kind of situation, moving through like, how could this person do this to me, right? That's part of the healing process. But when we get stuck in it, that's when things can be really challenging. So the question becomes, how can we move this energy and how can we see the underlying knocking at our door gifts that are being brought up? Because yes, there most likely is a gift here, even if it's really hard to see at the beginning. So let's say that encountering betrayal has brought up something deep within you that you've been trying to suppress. And it's shining a light on conditioning patterns, right? That you're realizing are there. Like this has happened before. So why is it happening again? And if you can get curious, even a little bit, if you can get curious and be willing to engage, you might discover more things. You might discover that, for example, you've been conditioned to say yes to things that you really want to say no to. And those little betrayals of self, they add up over time, right? To where we start to override our internal guidance system, right? Our red flags, the red flags, when you look back, oh, wow, there was that red flag and that red flag and that red flag. Why did I ignore those? Right. And if you get curious and you're willing to, again, move on from the victimization and engage with whatever has come up here, even if it's something that you didn't want, because most of us don't want to be betrayed, there's something there for you, right? It's an opportunity to bring to the surface these patterns that maybe you didn't even know were there. Maybe they were buried so subconsciously, or maybe it happened before and you were ashamed of it. And so you pushed it down and didn't really deal with it fully. This can be an opportunity for you to heal and to transform. So the question is, are you willing to dig deeper to see patterns of subconscious belief? There's another astrologer, Ralph McIntyre, who I love. He says, Pluto is your ability to see in the dark. I like that. I love that image. Like what it brings to mind for me is this is your ability to see things you couldn't otherwise see. And if you're willing to look at it that way, even though it's painful, because it will be, right? We're not going to sugarcoat these things. We're not going to say that something that is causing pain isn't painful. But it's also important to realize that it's part of the healing process, right? And that it is your job to take action to heal yourself, which will ultimately transform you, right? It never makes the experience okay necessarily. It could for you. You could really forgive something, right? But even if you don't, that's okay. But within this process of encountering something unwanted, like betrayal that we used in this example, it contains the gift of transmutation because on some level, your soul or your subconscious or whatever it is you want to call it knows that you need to change this pattern, right? That saying no to yourself, shutting yourself down, engaging in things that, are ultimately not good for you, or putting other people's needs above your own, or ignoring red flags, like that's ultimately not good for you. And so ultimately, this situation that started out really maybe not great, yucky, reveals something that at the end of it can take you to a place of transformation and ultimately heal you and empower you, right? So, do you see the relevance here that we're talking about, right? So, um, yeah, I mean, Maya Angelou, I wish I have a quote over here. It's something I posted on Instagram a little while back, but um, she has so many amazing things, right? And I love this quote: "We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty." And that can be true, right? And that can be true for any transit. But we can't sit back and be afraid, because ultimately, if we can understand a bigger context, if we can understand that stuff happens in life, it just does. No one's going to get out of this life without encountering something they didn't want to encounter. And so, if you can understand that you have more choices, more tools available for you, that you have more opportunities to change and to grow and to evolve and to expand and to face adversity and to get more courage, to get more confidence by engaging in life, then you're going to have a much easier time overall. You're going to get a lot more out of any transit, right? Because even the so-called benefics, Jupiter and Venus, they can cause problems too, right? The whole thing is, stuff happens in life. It just does. And yes, you can spend hours of your life combing through astrology charts, looking for every bad thing and making every bad connection, and then trying to, spend all your time figuring out exactly when those things are going to happen again so you can avoid them. I got news for you. You're not living. Sorry to say that. I know that's going to trigger some people, but maybe that's exactly what you need. So, the goal with any transit, you know, agency and metamorphosis. Any transit really offers you a unique and extraordinary experience to expand yourself and to grow, to respond to life in bigger, better, more ways, to expand your awareness of how you fit into the cosmic whole, your unique role, right? To live on purpose and with purpose. And these are beautiful things, right? You do not have to live in fear or anxiety of any transit, although it happens. Okay. And although you can choose to, right? You are so free, you can choose bondage. But if you can, use astrology to help you grow, right? Let it help you expand, but try not to get caught up in the fear of what might happen, because you're really creating so much energy that could be used in other ways. I'm gonna stop sharing. Um, it's such a tremendous energetic drain to try and hold things down. It's such a tremendous energetic drain to try and live in survival mode 24 hours a day and just be on high alert for any possible thing that could happen, although we may encounter that, right? So I hope this helps you feel a little bit better. I hope you have more of an understanding of how you can use a transit, to remind yourself that at any given time, you can choose to raise your awareness, to grow yourself, to expand yourself, to get new tools, maybe not in the way you would have liked, right, up front. There's many times we call things blessings in disguise for a reason, right? Because at the time they feel like anything but a blessing. But later we can look back and our rational mind, Mercury, right, can look back and make connections after things have happened, right? Because that's the way we're put together in so many respects. Anyway, I hope that was helpful. I hope you got a lot out of this. Let me know in the comments, like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, take care. Mwah.